And now they're getting a feeling through their body about Bali and that cute little restaurant that they love. And they're acquainting that feeling with you. How good's that?
Hello, and you're with Aveline Clark on the 6-Star Business Podcast, where we have conversations about what it takes to be 6-star as a 6-star leader in a 6-star business in a 6-star world. And in today's episode, I sat down with Lisa G, known as the Business Chick. She's a fabulous human. She's all about rolling her sleeves up and getting in there and helping business owners to create more freedom in their lives. She's, in her past, been an aerobics champion back in the 80s. And interestingly, she's the mum of 2 children who are elite athletes and training for the Olympics. She's certainly got a lot of stories, a lot of wealth and experience, and she's also got a heart of gold. A fabulous conversation, and I invite you to sit back and enjoy this one with Lisa G. Well, here we are. It's another episode of the 6-Star Business Podcast. I am Aveline, and I'm here with my co-host today, Corey Sebest. How are you, Corey?
Always good when I'm back. Thanks for having me.
Great. And we've got Lisa today. And my apologies. I don't want to get the pronunciation of your surname incorrect. So I'm going to let you introduce your name to the audience, if that's okay.
Thank you, Aveline. Hello. I don't even expect you to try and attempt my surname. I married into the name of Guglielmino, which is a nice, strong Sicilian surname, Guglielmino. So I just call myself Lisa G because it's easier.
I love that. Thank you, Lisa. All right, let's get started. I'd love to get to know you a bit. And to do that, I'm going to ask you a few questions to get to know you. First of all, where are you in the world? And who do you serve? How do you serve people? Like, so how do you serve them? And maybe tell us something you like to do when you're not busy serving people.
Oh, all these questions already. Let's see. Okay. So I'm a business coach. They call me the Business Chick. I used to have this big, long coaching title, and just like my big, long last name, it was quite confusing and hard for people to spell in my email address. And so we just shortened it. So now I'm the Business Chick. And I help people who are in business, generally small business to medium size. I help them, I guess, work through those frustrations that pop up every day that get in the way of running your business. And often it pops up as their staff are really frustrating them. But when we really get down to it, it's all about their management skills and their self-awareness and their communication skills that often have the biggest, I guess, function within their business or non-function within their business. So they're the people I like to serve. They generally have 10 to 30 staff. And, they're a little bit frustrated. They don't have the freedom that they thought they actually would have when they went into business. Now, what do I like to do when I'm not serving these people? I have a family, and they're all sportsmen. They're all athletes. And I was an athlete in a pre-gone era, younger times. And so I just generally run them around all over the place and follow them, and I'm their cheer squad. That's what I do.
I can relate, except I don't have a family of athletes. I can't really say that my 11-year-olds are athletes, but I'd love to know a little bit more about you. So what did you do as an athlete when you were younger?
Well, back in the 80s and 90s, it's an old sport that doesn't really exist anymore, but you may remember in the 80s and 90s there were the aerobics champions. So back in the days when aerobics was huge and Lycra and G-strings were the thing, I was a state aerobic champion, 3rd in the country, and I travelled to Las Vegas for the World Championships. And I actually, Corey, you live in Germany, I actually worked in Munich, Germany for 12 months for a studio there and travelled around Europe holding masterclasses and things.
Okay. How can we ever forget Flashdance? Huh?
That's right.
I love the journeys people have. We can't ever forget the things we do, and they help make us who we are today.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You said you've got an athletic family as well, so there was obviously that connection to your past when you married into this Sicilian name that you have, and your children.
Mm.
So how has being an athlete prepared you for what you do today?
Is that it has everything to do with what I do today. Even just originally, many years ago, just going for a job interview, that mindset of I will do this no matter what. Or sure, I can do this. I can run to the end of that 100-meter line and I can win. Athletes generally, once they get to a certain level, it's all about the positive mind frame that just comes naturally to you once you're in that mind frame. But it's also about that creating that picture in your mind and thinking ahead and imagining that you can make it so that you actually make it. If I didn't make it in something, I was devastated. Devastated. If I didn't get that job that I went for an interview for, I'd be devastated because in my mind, I was going to get it no matter what. And that's how I went into every interview because that's the way I used to approach sport. And that's the way my kids now, I shouldn't call them kids, they're both adults now, 22 and 19. That's the way you have to approach it when you're running towards something. You can't just run half-hearted or you won't make it.
I mean, I have been also an athlete, but not so successful, probably. There are also times where you don't achieve what you envision, and then you need to cope with frustration. So, how
Gosh,
did you cope with this, and how much of frustration is resonating with your today's client, and how do you help them
yeah.
to overcome that?
Yeah, yep, for sure. And I was sitting in the grandstand of a national competition maybe 2 years ago with one of my sons, and over this term of about 4 days, we're watching everyone run and we're sitting next to coaches and we see some athletes walk up to their coach crying, and then we'll see another athlete walk up to their coach with a medal and happy. And then there's other athletes that are sort of in between of, well, I didn't win, but I didn't do too badly. And so my son actually, they always come up with some amazing things. Your children teach you a lot. But he said, we're sitting here, Mum, and there's probably about 4,000 athletes sitting here, but actually only about 500 of those were winners. Only about 500 get a medal. So the whole season and preparation for this big, huge competition probably isn't about winning. It's about doing the best that you can do and achieving your own personal goals. It may not necessarily be getting the gold medal, but it may be bettering your time or increasing that jump by 1.5 of a centimetre for the end of the season, whatever your PB is. So I always say to, now this is another story. I have a business that I've been working with for about 6 months, and unfortunately with COVID, all the lockdowns here in Melbourne have been crushing for a lot of small business, and we've been working through the turmoil of figuring out whether they should stay open or not, or whether it's just time to close the doors and say goodbye to this business. So they finally made the decision that it's time to shut the doors and sell off all the supplies. And so we were talking about turning that in from a negative, turning it into a positive. What are the good things that they got from the last 5 years of running this business? What have they learnt? How far have they come personally in that journey of 5 years? Even though the business was a failure, were you a failure? No, it's not your failure. This was put upon you by something outside your control. So it's about looking back at all the goals that they kicked rather than the failures.
We very often tend to always see the negative side, right? And why do you think, with your knowledge in coaching people over many years, people tend to be so hard on themselves? Have you seen patterns
That's a
which
loaded
always lead
question, Cora.
them?
There's lots of answers to that one.
Yeah.
I would say the number one reason that comes up, there's always plenty of reasons why people are so hard on themselves. But I would say the number one reason is it's something that they learnt as a child. All right? If we really simplify it, every perception that we have comes from something we experienced as a child. And so if we're down on ourselves, or we talk negatively to ourselves, or we react in a certain way, it's because something happened when I was a child that taught me this is the way I should talk to myself, or this is the way I should react to that situation because that works. I had a client who was really struggling with, she would build up the business and it would get to a certain level of income. And it was always just that, it's that glass ceiling that you talk about, but it's a limit. It's a number. She would always get to this one number. But she could never quite build the business to the next level above that number. When we got right down to it, it really came back to something from her childhood of what was stopping her. Why does she keep taking her foot off the accelerator and putting it on the brake when she finally starts succeeding? Why can't she keep succeeding? Why does she stop and start again? So what we came down to is sitting in her mum and dad's kitchen as a child and hearing her mum and dad complain about their bosses who are assholes. So in her mind, if you're rich or you're a successful business person, you have to be an asshole. And she didn't want to be that. So once we figured that out, wow, how things changed. She went, oh my God, I can't believe I've been carrying that all this time and I didn't even know it.
That's incredible. When you said it's from the childhood, I sort of said yes, and I thought, yeah, I haven't heard someone say that before. Not that Corey's asked that question before, but I was fascinated to hear your example story, and it just resonates really strongly. I think we all have, we're all programmed, right, from our childhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a bit of introspection to really peel back the layers to figure out what is the story that I'm carrying.
Absolutely. And there are so many stories, even now, as you get older, the story comes up again and again. And you think, what's holding me back? What's stopping me from doing that thing? Why do I always get stuck on that? If you think back, it's really hard. It can be difficult to do it on your own. It's nice to have a friend or a coach or someone there that can be a sticky beak and ask those prying questions that you usually wouldn't ask yourself. And something that always happens as soon as someone answers me, if I ask a little bit of a prying question and they say, I don't know, then I know that's the spot we need to dig deeper. Because if you actually do know, but your subconscious is telling you, no, don't go there, don't go there. And some people will say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. I went, okay, I think you do. Let's sit on this for a while. Yeah, it can be hard to go back that far.
But your coaching goes then pretty deep, right? That's already going towards what a psychologist normally does. And the question would be, how do you get people to open up? Because we all wear a facade. We all
Mm,
say, I'm feeling great, although you feel miserable. Yeah. Just to
yeah.
keep up with everybody else. How do you crack the nut, so to speak?
I'm I think I'm fairly lucky in that that's one of my Wonder Woman super strengths, Eveline. Um, and I never knew it. It's only the last 10 years that I've actually stepped into it and realized that's one of my superpowers. Um, I was just lucky enough that I was using it for the last 30 years. And then I finally realized, oh, actually, maybe I should use this more. And that is that, I talk to people and they just naturally like me. Then they naturally like to open up to me and tell me stuff. Since I've been researching this, trying to figure out why that is, it's really about your emotional intelligence as opposed to your IQ. I like to really train leaders and help them build their EQ, their emotional quotient. Have you heard of that before? You're both nodding.
Sorry, we're both muted, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, I have, but
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated to hear more about this.
Yeah. Well, so it was so exciting for me when I finally figured out what it is that I was really strong at, and there was actually a name for it. So we've got your IQ, and everyone, you can go and do an IQ test, and it measures your intelligence, and it's a very measurable quotient. And this is now a measurement of your emotional intelligence. So when you walk into a room, you can look around, and all we tend to call it a woman's intuition because most women are quite emotionally intelligent. So we tend to call it intuition, but you can walk into a room and you can scan the room and look around, and you can pretty much get a feel for, by reading people's body language, that person's really struggling. That person's on fire today. Yeah, that person needs me to go and say hello to them. Or that person doesn't quite really fit in here. Maybe I should go and hold their hand and help them fit in. Yeah, because you can feel it. But it's also, we don't realize we're doing it when it comes naturally, but we're reading their body language. And that body language and even the tone of their voice gives off a certain energy that you can feel. Now, everyone is capable of growing this emotional intelligence and bettering themselves and building their strength in emotional intelligence. Everyone's capable of it. It's just that for some people, our personality makes us not interested in it. Some people are just not interested in emotional intelligence, and you'll find that they probably have a very high IQ. Or an extremely low IQ possibly as well. Yeah. But so if you've got a really high IQ, then your EQ you probably feel like your EQ is not as important. But it's super important in this day and age, and in the future, it's a massively important asset to have.
Mm. I love
Corey's
that.
thinking very deeply there.
I'm investing a lot into myself. So I read a lot of books, a lot of podcasts, and recently also a lot of philosophers. And it comes down always to consciousness, how conscious we are aware of ourselves, of the people around us. And very often when we say we do something for somebody else, in fact, we just do it for ourselves to please our ego, and we pretend it's for others. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very deeply thinking about what you just said. So it's
Yes.
interesting to get these. It's interesting to get these insight over 30 years. Have you seen needs of your clients shifting due to society shifting towards a specific
Oh,
route?
good question. Oh, let me think about that one. I have, and I think actually we were talking about this before we came on, Corey, is that, you know, there was a time, let's say we go back to the 70s or the 80s, and there was a time in corporate and business in general where there was the boss and there was the staff. Whereas in this day and age, especially like in Australia, I don't know about the rest of the world, you don't call people staff anymore. I mean, you can, and the corporates do, but in small business, we might call them our people or our team or maybe even our tribe, because it's the hierarchy system, the old-fashioned hierarchy system of the boss and the staff no longer works in this day and age. The staff now have higher expectations of themselves, of their lifestyle and their work-life balance, and they want to be treated as an equal. They're no longer just, at the bottom of the ladder. Even the person working in the mailroom has dreams and purpose, even though they don't know that they do. They may not know. And they want to do things in life that being in the mailroom isn't going to cut it. So for them to do their job properly, they want to feel valued. They want to feel like they're recognized. And they want all those core values that every human being wants. We're way more advanced now on that side of things when it comes to helping people in business and our people, our staff, to be part of that business. Because when they feel like they're part of the business and that they're contributing, then the growth of the business is exponential.
It's just funny. I was just thinking, processing what you just said. In those early years, you still had a very strong family bond. And over the last 10, 15 years, literally that fall a little bit apart. So in particular, a lot of divorce, every second marriage is divorced. And what you just mentioned with everybody wants to be valued. These values and seen, normally you used to get from your family. Yeah.
Mm,
And now that
mm,
totally in my experience and what I see and observe is that shifted towards that you are now looking for that recognition solely on the business side, and you leave totally out what your family could give you, your kids, if you would deal with your kids. But nowadays you're too busy. I mean, I'm talking out of experience, and you don't see them. So
mm-hmm.
you shift the attention totally to business, and what you let drop is a family.
Yeah,
And this is something
absolutely.
which is an interesting trend. And you,
Also,
yeah,
I have seen in the last 6 months with COVID and because of lockdowns and things changing, here in Melbourne, we've had to work from home almost 2 years. For a whole 2 years, everyone was just working from home. So the first 4 to 6 months of that was like bedlam. How am I going to work from home while I've got toddlers and, my husband's working from home as well? But then the next 18 months, people got used to it and they were forced to spend time with their husbands and wives and their children. They couldn't leave the house, so they were stuck with them. So they had to make the best of it. And things have changed now. People don't want to go back to the office. I think we have about 50% back at office now and the other 50% still working from home. So it's a bit of give and take. But there is definitely a shift now where employees want a quality of life that means they get to spend more time at home, and they value that now. So there's a big shift in the way employers are going to manage their staff, the productivity from the staff, and how they can recognize their staff when the staff just want life balance. It's very exciting.
I would say it's just the peak of the iceberg, because as you said, the sense of work-life balance, the ability to play with the kids, take a 2-hour break in the afternoon and just add it to 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. To still remain productive or even be more productive. And I think a lot of companies are not prepared to that. Economy is not prepared to that, since the bigger the companies are, the more you are seen as a resource rather than an individual. And that will put a lot of companies in front of big challenges where they need really EQ infused HR leaders and the right CEOs to see and understand the impact. Because employee retention rates are massively going to drop if they don't take the right action.
For sure, it's happening here. Retention, like people are job hopping at the moment. Yeah, it's happening a lot. Something else to consider, though, is artificial intelligence and how that comes in and plays a role in automating all of the things within business that usually we would have a staff member do. So now, I was just looking at a number the other day. I wrote it down here that in 2018, let's see, the demand for automated processes was $5 billion around the world, right? In 2025, automation of processes, so we're talking about AI and automation within business, will have spiked to $26 billion. So that's in the space of 7 years. That's 5, 10. It's gone. It's 5 times what it was. It will be 5 times what it was 7 years ago. So people are scared that, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to lose my job because it will be automated. So that again shows that, I mean, what cannot be automated and what artificial intelligence cannot do is show emotional intelligence. It's not human.
Yeah. Those stats are just, mind blowing, right? And I've heard people talk about AI in a fear language, for a little while, what's it going to be? And I think it's one of those unknowns, because we know that it's coming, it's new. Yet what you just said, hopefully it's like the other side of the coin, that the human-centered approach to everything we do is going to become so much more valuable. And EQ, like you were saying, is going to become so much more needed just naturally. People are going to have to, be more open and care about people. And I see that in the work that I do as well. And, I think Corey has had similar experiences. I'm fascinated, Lisa, what brought you, so this is a question a bit about your journey. So what brought you to be doing what you're doing now and figuring out your superpower, your genius?
I feel like everything in my life has just flowed and taken me. I just ride the wave and see where it takes me. But I think when I look back, I think there is a drive there that has always pushed me, and a positivity. I'm a glass half full kind of person. That's how I was brought up. So I just assumed that it was going to work out okay. Yeah, it'll be fine. Come on, let's do that. So we go and do it. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. We'll just do that instead. And then it works. Something works eventually. So when I came, so originally I was in the fitness industry, of course, with the aerobics and strength and condition training. And from there, it sort of morphed. I knew I was good with people. So it morphed into sales and selling and customer service, because I was good with people. People like me. People trust me. But I wasn't fulfilled. And I did that for a few years, probably 8 years in different roles of sales. And it was great for 12 months. But then I'd move on to some other position in sales, but with a different industry. And then I'd do that for 12 months and I'd be really good, and then I'd get bored. So then I'd move to another industry, which is why I've got all this so much varied business information and business sense, because I went from the fitness industry to the publishing, magazines, newspaper industry, radio. What else did I do? Building, custom homes, construction and building. I've been in so many different industries. I've got quite a wealth of knowledge around it. But what was missing, that's what I couldn't figure out. Why am I jumping from job to job to job? And there was no purpose to it. There it is. There's no, sure, I can sell that to that person. I can sell that advertising and help them build the perfect marketing strategy to sell their beautiful construction site. But then once it's done, it's like, well, okay, that's done. Now what am I going to do? There's no real huge purpose at the end of it. And it wasn't even now working as a business coach, it still took me 2 or 3 years in that industry to figure out what my grand purpose was. And now every time that little thing happens, it lights my fire. I get excited. So now I know I'm in the right place.
That's so exciting. I think we talked about this when we had the chat prior to the podcast, and I always love when I hear people excited about what they're doing because they have tapped into that bigger purpose.
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you, like, is this something that you help your clients with?
Finding their purpose, for sure. Yeah. There's some key things that we always end up working on. One is finding your purpose. What's your purpose? What's the purpose of your business? So, and often when you first ask someone in business, oh, so what's the purpose of this business? They'll tell you the practicalities. We serve people fish and chips so that they can fill their bellies at the cheapest price in town with the best chips, the best potatoes, whatever that is. So it's very practical. Okay. But the real question, then I say, yeah, but what does that actually give the customer? Well, it gives them a nice full belly and they're not hungry. But what does it actually give them? Like, what do they feel when they've got that full belly of potato chips? Corey's laughing. What do they feel? Oh, I guess they feel comfortable and they feel satisfied. And who are they eating those fish and chips with? Oh, their family. So they're feeling comfortable and satisfied with their family, and it's a family concern. Yeah, so it's about building that purpose to actually have some feeling in it rather than just practicalities. What's my purpose? Oh, to change nappies, look after my kids, and make sure that they get fed. That's not your purpose as a mum. What are they actually getting from you, mum? Well, they're getting love, attention. I'm teaching them how to be strong, independent providers and contributors to their community. That's the mum's purpose. Yeah.
What a great example, both examples. And I'm sure everyone could relate to both. Those who aren't mums anyway.
So I'd love to know, before we go further, what's Eveline's purpose?
Hang on, isn't this supposed to be the questions directed at you? Why am I being asked a question?
It's a conversation. Yeah? So she can ask.
Of course
as well.
It is.
Yeah?
Who would like to go first? Corey, get ready because you're next.
This is awesome. So mine is to bring the value back to people in the world.
The value. Their value, like how they feel.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because when they feel that value, what does that do for them and their families?
That's right. It's huge. Yeah.
It's huge. It
Yeah.
causes a huge shift, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Do
Really
you know,
does.
my purpose is very similar to that. So when I walk into a business, and I'm giving them tools or tips, or they have some shift, or I help them figure out the right way to communicate to a certain staff member. Okay, this person is this. So if you talk to them like this, that's going to really excite them, and then they'll like you. So when they have that, oh, okay, and they do it and it works, that really gets me excited, because I know that they're going to share that with at least 6 other people. They might share it with their children at home, or their wife, or their friend, or some total stranger at the fish and chip shop. But that tool that I just gave them, they are going to use that and light up other people's lives. That's my purpose. That's what I love about it.
I love it. Thank you.
Hooray. What's your
For me,
purpose?
it's simple. It's serving others in the sense of I recently figured out that a lot of people are stating a kind of an inspirational source to them with my energy. And I have been the opposite back in time. So I'm coming from a dark place, of a very selfish place. A lot of things in my life happened which actually flip flop my value system and also the way how I want to live a more meaningful life rather than hunting for KPIs to over deliver on. And I'm just a kind of connector. So I have the skill to connect people with each other around the globe. So Malaysia with Africa, Australia with Germany, and
Mm.
yeah, that's what I'm doing actually. And I
You're
do that
really
with fun,
enjoying
with
that.
humor. Yeah,
You're enjoying
yeah.
that new, it's a new
It's my
level for
passion.
you, isn't it?
It's a passion. It's something I can do outside of my corporate roles I used to have. Because my
Mm.
corporate roles, I have to stick to my roles and responsibilities. The more I step above, the more it was seen as not appropriate. And I didn't like that. So I don't like limitations. I never liked limitation, and particular limitations happening here and happening in society, because I think we can do much, much more than everybody thinks he or
Mm.
she could do. And that's what I encourage everybody to figure out. Adventure your own life. Figure out what you can do, yeah, without allow anybody else to tell you what you can do and what you cannot do. That's on you, nobody else.
Yeah, yeah. A
Mhm.
lot of people sit sit in a zone of, they're talking about me, or when
Mhm.
someone does something, oh, why did they say that, or why did they look at me like that, or I can't believe that she just walked past my office and didn't even say hello. Is she not talking to me anymore? So it's that defensive mode that they live their life in every day. They're just defensive. If we can break down that wall, there's a saying that I always, it's my own saying, it's not really a saying, but I always end up saying to all of my clients, you know what? It's not actually about you. It's not about
Yes.
you. She walked past the door and that's it. There's actually no story to it. And the quicker you can get rid of that defensive mode and just open up, then the more you can grow personally, but also in business. The more, I think that's probably that's the stepping stones to that 6 star.
Mm.
Mhm.
So true. Most people are, worrying about themselves and worrying about what people think of them, and then they
And
internalize everything.
while you're thinking about yourself all the time, there's no room to think about other people.
Mm. Yeah, that's it. Become a very self-focused life, very self-centered,
Yeah, and you don't
basically.
even know you're doing it. You think
Mm.
that you're defending yourself, but there's actually nothing to defend yourself from.
Yeah.
Just let it go. And the same goes with, when people are dealing with staff. Another big thing that I come up against is micromanaging. So business owners, they get to that point where they've got the staff, but they're always looking over their shoulder or telling them that they did it wrong, or no, don't do it like this, I like it done like that. And so they're micromanaging everyone, and everyone's too scared to step up and do more because they'll get shut down. But the micromanager doesn't even know that they're doing it. They think that, these people aren't trustworthy.
Yeah.
I've got to be on the defense. If we can let down the defensive mode and just let people be themselves, then the creativity flows and people step up. But it's a catch-22. Which do you do first? Because micromanagers are very scared to let go because they think that everything's going to fall apart. And it might. So it's a leap of faith.
Absolutely it is. You mentioned 6-star just now. I'd love to know your thoughts on what 6-star is. What does it mean to you?
6, I really, because I'm so passionate about communication and emotional intelligence and how that plays a role in performance. Whether you're an athlete, emotional intelligence plays a massive role in athletic performance, because we need to control or have awareness over our thoughts and our feelings, and whether we're thinking positively or negatively. And if we're injured or something's not going right, we need to pull it together and just carry on and look at the long distance goal rather than the short term goals. It can be really heartbreaking to watch an athlete that's going through an injury. It's very mentally straining for them. So I think that emotional intelligence and self-awareness is the key to that 6th star, for sure. Aveline's nodding, and Corey is thinking deeply about that. Because if we've got the capacity to communicate with people on a really emotional level, and to let down our guard and be brave enough to just talk to people on a real, true, open basis, then we're encouraging them to do the same back. Now, if they're a customer and you're doing that, do you think they're going to love you to death? They're going to love you because they're going to feel like you're their best friend. If it's your staff, their performance is going to lift. If you've got the right staff, that fit to you and that are there to serve with you, alongside you, and you're open and caring and you show them that, then they'll do the same. Husbands and wives, if you step it up and you be open, then they will step it up as well. It's just a natural consequence.
So it's about the individual becoming more evolved on a heart level, an awareness level. Yeah.
And some people are naturally fantastic at that, but they've had it beaten out of them over the years. We're taught from primary school not to speak up. Just be quiet until it's your turn to talk.
And listen. Exactly.
With the clients you've worked with, Lisa, and those business owners and staff that you've worked with to help develop their EQ, what's been the shift or the difference in those businesses and the people as a ecosystem as a result of that work? compared to the businesses that say might not be interested in it. You mentioned about people having high IQs or lower IQs and they're just not interested in EQ at all.
Yeah. What is the shift? What changes?
Mm.
It's the quality of their life. Ooh.
That's big.
It's the quality of their life.
Mm.
The quality of how they're interacting with each other. They take that home to their families and they come back to work the next day because they want to. Or if they're working from home, they jump on at their desk and work because they want to, because the interaction, they feel emotionally recognized, emotionally validated. They feel like, I really want to help Lisa build her business because we're all in this together. And she said, when we get to this, she's going to take me to Las Vegas for a holiday. Or whatever it is that person aspires to. Now, I challenge business owners and leaders in general to stop and think for a moment about, let's say, your top 3 staff members, or maybe even your top 3 customers. Stop and think, what do they want in life? What's something that they would love to have in the next year or 2?
What
Do
a
you
great
know?
question. Yeah.
How much do you actually know about this person?
Just imagine if you went and asked your customers that. First of all, how would they feel answering it? They'd be completely, overwhelmed and probably overjoyed at being asked such a question. But it also gives them permission to share what's in their heart, like what they're aspiring to. Wow, someone cares about me enough to ask me this question.
Have you would have had this time where you've asked someone a question that was really deep or digging about them, and then you'll see the reaction. They just sort of stop and a little bit confused at first, and then when you keep asking, they light up. So once they start sharing with you what that goal is, or what that experience is that they aspire to have next year, or, oh my God, I would love to go to Bali. It's been such a long time since we went to Bali, and then you ask them, oh, what's your favorite thing about Bali when you last went there? Well, we stayed at the so-and-so resort, and then right next door, there's this beautiful little restaurant that we always go to for breakfast. And then you see their face lighting up. And now they're getting a feeling through their body about Bali and that cute little restaurant that they love. And they're acquainting that feeling with you. How good's that? And that's just because you're asking questions and you actually care about people's answers.
And that's the key, right? Caring, genuinely caring, not just asking for the sake of pretending to care.
Yeah, wanting to know more about them. Just me making up that story about Bali and the little restaurant next door gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
Makes me want to go to Bali. And that's what you want to do for people, really switch them on and get them thinking about the future and thinking about, things that they aspire to or that they want, that they can work towards. And once you know that about them, you're at a different level of friendship now, or at a different level of relationship where you get them a little bit more. Now, I had a boss once who asked me that, but he didn't really care. And I could tell when he was asking me. So tell me, Lisa, what do you want? Like in 12 months' time, if the business went really well, what are you working towards? I said, I'd really love a new deck for the back of my house. I've been working towards that, the decking, and I'd have a barbecue. But halfway through me explaining this to him, you could see his eyes were glazing over. So he asked and he did want to know, but he couldn't hold his focus long enough to actually care about the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big mistake, because that actually went
makes it
negative
worse.
for me. Yeah. Rather than
The-
positively.
these are
Yeah.
these are very inspiring leaders and chefs and managers. Yeah, indeed, yes.
You've
They have
met
a
a
lot
few
of
of
EQ.
them.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all
How
have.
how would you describe current society in regards to existing or lack of EQ? Is there a lot out there and people just need to tap into it? Is it something because actually everybody can do it, as you said in the beginning? Or is that a learning curve because through all our education system, we are not taught to think individually. We are not taught to sense empathy for others. We are taught to be in competition with each other in everything we do entire life. So
That's right.
what is your perspective and your
I,
takeaway of 30 years doing
I
coaching?
I do believe everyone has the capacity, and a certain percentage of people choose not to because it's too hard for them. They'd rather stay in that safe corridor of depending on the strengths that they already have honed, that they have learnt from childhood, and it's working for them. And that's great because it works for them. If you're looking for another level, first of all, go back. Then there are other people who have been using their emotional intelligence their whole life and don't even know it. They're actually just naturally good at it, or they've been taught that by their family because their dad was a salesman. So he has a really good high EQ. And their mum was ran the local church luncheon group. So she has a high EQ. So they learnt it as a child and they've just been using it all their lives, like me, not even knowing why they're so good at this. Like it's some sort of magic power I have and I don't know what it is until someone explains it to them. But then there's a group of people who want to step up to the next level and they have the IQ thing already traveling and they've got their skills and their strengths and things have been working, but now it's time to move on and step up to a new level. So what do? Dig deeper into that emotional intelligence, that self-awareness, and grow that. Because that's the way of the future. And that's the next level of leadership for you.
Love it. I absolutely love it. Wow.
There is there are measurements for EQ too. I do have a test that I use sometimes for people. It's very simple. You do it online and then it comes back and we go through it and debrief it and it shows you where all your strengths are in the emotional arena. And that was groundbreaking for me because when I did that and it came back, that's when I went, oh my God, I'm actually smart at something. My IQ may not be like sky high, but bloody hell, my EQ's enormous. Yay! So I was finally validated about where my superpower was, and that's what I knew I could. I was already using it in coaching, but now I had it validated, and it was really nice to see that measurement.
Brilliant. That's so good. Look, I'm conscious of the time. This has just gone so fast. Corey, have you got any kind of questions for Lisa?
I got one, final one. So through the passing years as a coach, how did that impact your friendships? Did they also increase by time? Because I can imagine that when you're coaching people and you find a deep level of understanding each other, them opening up to you, that this can't always stay just between a coach and a client, because it merges, right? Because it happens on the emotional level. So, have there been
Yeah.
friendships arousing out of the client coach
Yes.
relationship you entered in the beginning?
Yeah. It's interesting because I wouldn't call it a friendship, because it's not safe to go into that friendship zone while you're actually
Mhm.
coaching someone.
Yeah, not in between. Yeah,
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 you
yeah.
want to keep it, but so I, I would. There is friendships evolved. Like, I have past clients who are now friends, and they ask me about myself, and I ask them, and we text each other, and we stay in touch. Absolutely, and they are now friends, but they are no longer clients, because as a friend, it can be tough sometimes to ask the tough questions. So I like
Mm.
to keep those boundaries of I guess it's kind of like when you go to the doctors. The doctor knows a lot of personal stuff about you. So you actually for the client, they like to keep the doctor at arm's length. They don't want to go out to dinner with the doctor and all of his family, because he knows too much about me. So I think that might be what it is. I think my clients are just as happy to stay at arm's length as I am, until now it's time to be friends.
Mm. Mm.
And I like that anonymity,
Yeah.
that I can tell Lisa anything. There's no judgment. Nothing's going to come back to bite me later. She's not going to share it with anyone. I can tell her anything. Some of the things I've heard, like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. But it's also just so flattering and I guess soul warming to me when someone shares things with me that they would never share with anyone else.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah. Creating that safe space and building that trusted relationship is really key.
for
Mm.
sure. And I like to think that I give them the tools to be able to do that with other people too.
Yeah, of course. And that's just the flow on effect, the ripple effect. You're impacting them. And like you said earlier, that impacts their friends and family, and
Mm,
they share all that. Yeah. So you're really creating a lot of change and a lot of happiness, bringing, I guess,
yes.
some joy to people's lives, and as
Yeah.
well as businesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of fun. Fun is really important to me.
Mm.
Happiness, fun. It's one of the key things that we talk about when I have 7 principles that I walk into with a business, 7 things that we work on, and the number one thing is fun.
Mm.
Mm.
Wow. That could be another whole podcast just talking about that, I reckon. Um,
Yes.
Lisa, as we come to a close, are there any, or could you share a tidbit or a little piece of advice, some parting wisdom for our listeners?
Ooh, parting wisdom. I'm going to go back to what I said before, and that's the thing that I always say to my clients is, it's not about you. So I would say, go through the next week with that in mind, and just notice when something happens and you think, oh, why did that happen? Or why did they talk to me like that? Just come up with the phrase, it's not about me, and see how that changes things. It completely changes the perspective of the situation.
Mm,
Just notice that.
yeah, great tip. Great tip. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
thank you so much. What a fabulous
Lovely.
conversation.
Yeah.
Really,
Thanks,
really
guys.
interesting.
I would
Yeah.
love anyone listening just to jump on and connect with me on my social channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Jump on. I love a good chat. So, and then you'll
Yes,
see some of my posts that are all about this sort of thing. And yeah, please connect with me.
definitely connect with Lisa. Yeah, we'll have all your links on the show notes under the play button. So they'll all be there. Thank you very much.
Great chat.
Yeah, great. Have a
Grazie
great
mille,
day.
Lisa.
Thank you.
Grazie mille. A dopo.
Prego.